Sahar.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for NYU Art Center's Off the Stage event presented by Mubadala. My name is Gaya Menon, and I'm a senior studying political science and literature right here at our NYUAD and an Art Center intern. This evening's Arts Chat, Building a Life as an Artist in the UAE, is presented in partnership with the NYUAD Art Gallery as well as the NYUAD Career Development Center. This series is part of the Off the Stage events, which includes community dinners, visits to classes, post-show Q&As, and arts chats, such as this. To learn more about our OTS events, please sign up for our newsletter or visit our website and click on the OTS tab. And now to the heart of tonight's conversation, our guests, whose creative paths embody the very theme of this conversation. We're joined by three remarkable artists whose work spans disciplines and forms of expression. So please welcome Shereen Saif, writer and multidisciplinary artist, Jomel Reyes, an artist and performance maker, and Simrin Mehra Agarwal, an multidisciplinary artist. Each of them brings a distinct voice, a unique process, and a wealth of experience to the conversation on what it means to build a life and to live a life as an artist. So tonight's conversation is less about arriving at conclusions and fixed answers and more about sharing what it means to have a lived experience as an artist, the insights, the turning points, the doubts, and the discoveries that have shaped your artistic careers. Each of you come from a different background and a different discipline, yet your work intersects quite a lot around the question of identity, place, and of course, persistence. So to begin, let's start at the level of the personal and the pivotal. When did you first begin to see your creative work not just as a passion, but as a practice that you could build your life around? What shifted for you, internally or externally? Let's start with you.
With me, thank you.
Just to put you, not to put you on the spot.
Lovely to see you all. So, thinking back, right, so I've always had classical dance as part of my life. I started learning when I was 10 years old. It wasn't love at first step, I can assure you that. So the thing is, the background I come from, I'm second generation Malayali. Oh, that, yes. I sense the vibe. So being an artist was not even an option. You had to do a professional course. So I did science and I went on to do architecture, etc., etc. So dance was part of my life, but I was never allowed to be an artist. And then it was only about, so I've always had the two, like I would have a full-time career, I had a corporate job, etc. And all my artistic practices happened in the evenings and over weekends. And I did this for the longest time. And I remember very clearly that turning point for me in 2014 when I was doing an art installation for Sika. I finished my work at 7 p.m. and I went to shot from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and took a shower and went to work. And that was it. That week, a lot of shit happened in the office. Sorry, excuse my... A lot happened at work and I was like crying and all sorts of things happened. And I knew I had to take a call. I had to choose between being an artist or trying to do this both. And I couldn't. So I said, okay, I quit my corporate job and I decided to focus more on my artistry practice and build. So 2014 really was my turning career. So that was a little over a decade ago, is when I took ownership of being an artist first.
Of course, I'm sure you're grateful for your past self for that leap of faith.
Oh, yes.
No, of course. And I would love to hear from you next.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here at NYU. And I started really young. So when I was in grade 2, I used to kind of draw all over the house. I used to draw on the walls. And my parents were annoyed at first, but then they were very supportive. They knew that that was the path I wanted to take. And they got an art teacher for me. And since that time, I've been training in the arts. And then I did my bachelor's and master's in painting and sculpture. So I was very clear from the beginning that this is the path I wanted to choose. But that's a lot because my parents were very, very supportive. And they kind of took me all over to the museums and exposed me to different genres of art. And I was able to experiment with different mediums at that time. But I think after I finished my master's and I feel that I learned the basics, that's when I started developing my work a lot. But I really feel that after coming to Abu Dhabi, I feel that my work has developed a lot more because of the exposure that I got here.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, like a lot more opportunities.
No, of course, environment plays such a huge role in the way that we shape our journeys. And I would love to hear from you as well.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Jomel, and my story when I first fell in love with arts, particularly theater, started when I was in high school. My first year in high school, we went to a trip to watch a play. And at that time, I didn't know about theater, anything about theater. I just know there are performances, but no theater. And when I started to sit in the balcony and the lights started to close, I saw the performers, the characters. I remember it very vividly. Greek mythology. The play was about these gods and goddesses. And there is this one actor, he plays as Zeus. I said to myself, I'll be acting with that actor soon. And after a few years, fast forward to college, I've been looking for theater groups that I can join, and then that's how it started. I was able to train properly. I get to work with a lot of professional theater actors, and then one day I was invited to be part of a play that talks about history of one of the places in the Philippines, and he was there. I said, "This is my moment."
Of course, full circle.
Yeah, from then on, I said to myself that I'll be doing theater, whether I'm working as a corporate person, I'll still be doing theater all my life. And that's when, even when I came here in UAE, that's the first thing that I looked for, the theater place where I can participate. But during that time in Dubai, there's none for a Filipino theater group. That's when I started with my friend, Juan. We started our own theater group, and here I am now. Yes, I take it to Bill. When I look to Bill, yeah.
No, that's amazing. Such different journeys, but one thing that unites all of you is a passion for the arts and, of course, being here in the UAE. So, like elsewhere, working as an artist in the UAE has its own difficulties, resources, challenges, and, of course, the plus sides. So, what does artistic sustainability for you mean in this context? And not just financially, but also for your artistic identity and also emotionally and culturally being in this space?
So you're looking straight at me.
I'm looking straight at you.
So for me, artistic practice, sustainability, and diversity of practice comes together. For me, that's inseparable. So it helps that my practice is multidisciplinary. And there are some parts of my practice that I can monetize, so to speak, and some parts that I cannot monetize. But because I do theater and storytelling work, I do voiceover work, which is also commercial, I do some writing work, so there's a whole bunch of things that I'm in. And if you think, there are people who say that you need to focus on one thing and just be really, really good at that. It was never enough for me just to hyper-focus on classical dance. And that's why I jumped into theater. And for me, I found myself in theater. So, and from theater, then storytelling happened. So all of these things were part of my journey, and they've somehow helped me build a practice that is getting to be more and more sustainable, especially in a place like the UAE where, let's just say, patronage of arts is not where it should be. We're getting there. There's an ecosystem that's developing. So you're pretty much on your own to sort of figure things out. And most of us have a day job. In a place like the UAE, you have to have a day job in the arts or otherwise. And then you find a way to make your practice more sustainable. So, yeah, that's
So it's a learning journey, like it took
totally,
you for
yeah,
a time
yeah.
to
It
go.
takes a while, and the thing is, it takes at least 5 years to show the market that you're a serious artist, to build your a minimum of sort of like really fighting it out, putting your work out there. It takes that much time. If you can survive that, then chances are you will stay. But a lot of us sort of drop out, right? You don't. Yeah, kind of.
It becomes like a rite of passage
Yeah.
for you to go to. And speaking about theater, I would love to hear from you as well about artistic sustainability, working in the performing arts space here.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I'll be honest. It isn't easy to really go out there and present your work or your performance, because it talks about at the back of your work is also there's the finances, the schedules, the people. All these factors have to be blended in and work for the betterment of the project. In terms of finances, you really have to find ways in terms of either your own pocket, like in our group, most of the time, whoever's the producer, initially gives out the money for it to be able to roll out for a start, and then we tap in. It is important to be able to know how you can reach out to other people, not just those who enjoys performances or arts, but also those who supports the community of like us in the Filipino community. There are also individuals who are willing. There are corporate individuals who have reached the level we're in. They can financially give on their own, or they can coordinate on your behalf to companies who may be able to give something financially. And that's what happened to us. Also, the embassy, our embassy, they are very helpful in terms of letting people know that this group exists and if you can support. Yeah, those kinds. You really have to go out there as an artist, I think. Financially, it's always a struggle, but you have to go out there and have a thick face in a sense that you have to be able to be courageous in telling people, hey, I have a project. You might be able to help, or interested to assist, or know someone who can help us out. So I think that's part of being an artist as well, that we always have to learn. As we go along, we have to learn how to do this business part of being an artist.
And talking about the business part as well as being in the performing arts and the similarities and differences in the visual arts as well, is there a strong pull, especially because of the corporate side of things, for you to try to think of yourself as a brand as opposed to being an artist? Are they in tension, or is it part of your artistic practice for you to think of yourself as those are separate things, like a brand being a separate thing and being an artist being a separate thing? Or is a brand identity also something that gets created because of the context we're in?
I feel that the work itself is a brand. You know, for some of us, if you're not dividing your work like the commercial work and the artistic work, like I try to keep it to the artistic work. If I'm doing some work which is maybe a commercial project, that would also be something which I can do specifically, not something that others can do. So I mean, it's not like you're like trying to make the brand by yourself. The branding happens as you kind of keep working within the space. And as for the challenges of being an artist in the UAE, like you can apply for several projects. You have many institutions supporting artists, and you have like open calls like the NYU Abu Dhabi, Richard Mille Art Prize, which I was a part of. Then you have the Abu Dhabi Art, the emerging artists thing. I was a part of that as well. But what happens is when you have these kind of projects, you need a massive studio space to be able to execute that kind of work. And if you do not have that, then you need to really, rent out spaces for a short time. You need to kind of move to different spaces depending on your financial situation. Like for me, I don't have a full-time job. I do give workshops, but it's quite tight financially. So if the institution is supporting, I can maybe get a bigger space for that duration of time. And it's also, when the projects are really large, then maybe you have to work within the site, within the space itself. Like in the Louvre, I worked for 1 month inside the museum to be able to create the massive installation.
Of course.
So that is also very challenging because you have a lot of people kind of watching you, and you have to be like totally open to conversation while working. So it can be distracting, but it can also be fun. I mean, you can also pick up cues from people, and your work can grow automatically. It's a very organic process. So a challenge can also become extremely interesting in a way.
Of course, and it contributes back
Yeah.
to your artistic practice.
But then after the show, what happens to the work? If the museum acquires it, it's really amazing. But if the museum doesn't, then the work goes back to storage. And storage is a very big problem for us. We do not have proper storage spaces in Abu Dhabi, and they're extremely expensive, whatever we have. So if we get like proper studio spaces, I mean, there'll be a lot of and a lot more financial help would be amazing.
Of course. So the through line through all of it is that logistics of being an artist is it does not match the glamour of the art that we are able to do. But I guess we sometimes have to pay a price for the things we do to love. But again, as we were talking about all of this, I'm thinking about the fact that an arts career does not really unfold in a linear fashion. Think about one, like next the other, next the other. It's kind of many things are blooming at the same time in multiple spaces. So if artistic lives don't unfold in these straight lines, they bend, they pause, they loop, and sometimes fracture. In a world that often like sort of measures our successes in terms of visibility or productivity, how do you define growth in your artistic life? Are there forms of progress or fulfillment that have surprised you? Things that might not neatly fit into a CV or for you to post about on LinkedIn, but felt very deeply significant for you on a personal level? I'd love to hear from you, Jomel.
Okay. I'm not sure with other art forms, but with us as a theater group, as a grassroots theater group here in UAE, as per my experience, the changes would be in terms of the people who would like to participate. Because before, there's only two of us when we started, and then it was hard really to get people to come in and volunteer. Because most of our artists all of us are volunteer artists. We spend time in rehearsals and in the shows, but we don't really have this monthly salaries to do it. So for some people who came here in UAE to work initially, it's really a sacrifice whether you spend your weekend on a rehearsal that would consume you mentally and physically, or just rest, go home and watch Netflix or whatnot. Right. So we had people in the past who joined us and then realized this is not for me. I love theater, I love performance, but this is not for me. And there are those who stayed with us, and we're happy with that. And now, as we grow in terms of our capacity as a production team, I can say that that's how I measure our success, because they now follow us in the social medias, and they message us, hey, how can I participate? I may not be able to go to rehearsals, but how can I help somehow in terms of getting sponsors or getting rehearsal venues. So those people who are willing to help us now are really opened us to more possibilities on how we can do more projects in the future.
Of course. And what a beautiful thing that you measure progress by the community you can build around you.
Yeah, well, that's how it started.
Yeah,
So
of course. No, that's beautiful to hear. And there's a common and from what I'm hearing, some misconception that the visual arts can be more of a solitary space. What about you? How would you answer the question?
I feel the visual arts could be solitary as well as public. So it depends on how you're working. If you're working in your studio space, it could be pretty private. But then again, if you have your colleagues come over, you have curators, you're inviting people, then it could still be partly public. But if you're exhibiting your work within public spaces, like for example the public art biennale, and you have thousands of people kind of coming there to the museums, to the outdoor spaces, then the work could also be very public.
Of course.
So I mean, it's a nice mix. What I like personally is a very nice mix of both. You need times to be alone and solitary to be able to think. And I think thinking is very important towards your work, to progress and develop. And so it's a good mix of both is required.
And so, do you think that the way you see yourself progress as an artist is different depending upon which context you work in?
Yeah, I think the context is also very important.
Mm-hmm.
It also depends on where your work will be showcased and what kind of people, what is your, what is the audience you're looking at. For example, if you're exhibiting your work in a museum, what is the message that you want to give in the museum space? Like, for example, my work talks about nature within the context of histories of war within the Gulf region. It's very specific to this region. So through my work, I want to build awareness towards things like climate change and extinction of species. So I think when I'm working in a museum, then I'm able to kind of share my experiences with the people while they're there. And within the studio space, I mean, you kind of develop your ideas.
Of course. And as a multidisciplinary artist yourself, you wear a lot of hats. You're in multiple contexts, multiple spaces. So for you, is there a single marker of progress or moment that kind of united all of these experiences for you together?
I think I want to comment first off on this idea of a linear career. I think that was something from like the 70s and 80s. Because I don't think anybody in this room has had a linear career. So, no, how many people have had linear careers? Practically no one in this room. So the fact of the matter is, that's how we're all growing, whether you're artists or not. So I think first off, that's a complete misconception that people have linear careers. That what used to be the case.
Yeah.
As for me, I think it sort of happened over time. So as a person trained as a classical dancer, I wanted to. So there's no voice in classical dance, right? So people are singing for you, you're dancing. You don't explore your voice ever. And I wanted to explore my voice, and that's when I got into theater. And when I got into theater, I realized that this is really my home. I'm a theater person first, and then so that shift, that was kind of like my first milestone to understand that I'm actually more of a theater person than I am a dancer. So dance, although I started as a dancer, dance is probably like third or fourth in the way I think of myself. So that for me was progress, so I measure progress with these kind of little windows that open for me in the way I understand my practice. And then I started making work that combines video and dance and theater and all sorts of things, and I didn't know what to call it really. And for the longest time I was calling it installation art, which is not what it was, which I later figured out. And then I did a fellowship. I was part of SEIF, and then I realized that what I actually do is conceptual art. So to find words to explain what I do. So these kind of like little epiphanies that happened to me along the way, and understanding that what I really enjoy is an idea that excites me, and then I have all these different tools, and to pull whatever I need to make that idea come to life. And to discover that along the way, for me, that is progress.
Of course.
And also, like, people reaching out to me on Instagram saying, hey, I saw your work. Do you want to collab with me? That is progress. Do you know what I mean? So those kind of things, artists reaching out, building communities, doing things together, I sort of measure it like that.
And that's so beautiful to hear. And I'm also noticing that unlearning is as much part of the process, whether it be unlearning the conception that we have about careers, about the way we think about our artistry. Are there any moments, Jomel, that you can pick out where unlearning became a huge part of the way you approached your work?
Yeah, definitely. In the Philippines, it's different when you ran a regular theater project, wherein there's the director and he's the boss. But here we're in a community theater, so we really have to gauge our participants, the volunteer artists. We have to cultivate somehow. How can we ask them or make them participate in a sense that you have an idea, it's important for us to hear it. Your contribution is not just being here physically, but what else you think we can improve on this performance. Most of our work are experimental in a sense, or we adapt it into, we have a original, a written piece by someone else, but we had to adapt it into a form of wherein narratives of migrants are being inserted in that performance. So what we know as an individual is not always the right thing. So what we do is we ask our actors, who are also volunteer artists, what do you think of this one? So what we do is we try to make sure that we don't use what we used to do in back home, wherein there's a only one person deciding on everything, but we allow everyone to grow while we're doing the production or while we're doing the project. Because I think that's very important in a sense that they won't be fearing us that, okay, this guy he wants everything to be just him and him and him. So also it's a one way of growing in a sense, because we realize that what we know is not the only thing that is the right thing or the important thing to say. Others who may be also a migrant, but they have a different experience. So how can we integrate his experience or her experience in this project that we're doing?
Of course.
Because it's important for us to be able to tell stories of everyone, not just one person.
Yeah, of course. And I love that such a collaborative space kind of breaks this idea of the arts as a gate-kept or an echo chamber space where the same thing gets kind of perpetuated once you've figured out what sort of works. And as someone who's trained also in the visual arts and you've had formal training as well, do you think as you progressed as an artist, you had to unlearn any aspect, or there were some concepts that you came across in your like formal training that in your practice you've sort of demolished or no longer do?
I think every day is a learning process and an unlearning process as well. So when you're working every day, like in the beginning, I felt that I was very stiff as an artist. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I used to keep on working towards that. Like I had a strict layout and things like that. But after a few years, I kind of abandoned that idea completely. I started relying totally on the process of making the artwork. So every day was a new process, and the work would kind of grow organically.
Of course.
It's not like forced that you have to do this, but every day you play with the work. You're creative and you just try different kind of experiments with the work. So that's very, very exciting, that process.
Yeah, of course.
And also, I find growing is also not repeating yourself. It's reinventing yourself multiple times. Means your language will not change. As a person, every person has a unique language, but as you grow, your mediums may change. Maybe you want to experiment with sculpture. Maybe you want to experiment with sound and video. And the last installation that I had, I kind of combined video, sound, and sculpture.
Oh, multimedia. Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
So I feel like it's just a learning and unlearning process.
And it
goes
repeats
kind of
ad nauseum
together.
every day,
Yeah.
of course. And I really like the idea of play, like playfulness that you bring into it, because we talk about our work and our professions in such sometimes sterile, almost like clinical, pristine fashion that it's completely divorced from who we are as people or the things we value in leisure in terms of play. So we often hear that being an artist means wearing many hats, just as all of you have detailed. You're a creator, you're a producer, you're an educator, you're an administrator, and sometimes even the fundraiser, as you said. But these roles, again, seem to be sources of creative energy. So how do you balance these demands of sustaining your creative practice with the freedom to be curious and playful? So I really want to know what keeps a spark alive when you have to balance so many things at the same time. And I'd love to hear from you on that, Shereen.
Well, it's hard actually,
Yeah.
because you've got to wear these multiple hats,
Yeah.
and some of these hats are quite boring, especially if you have to be the project manager of a particular project, and then you are responsible for your co-collaborators, the might be musicians, and you're also writing out that grant application. You're also doing many things, and you've got to be the creative person. And sometimes you're in the midst of a performance and you need to speak to the lighting guy because you cannot afford to hire anyone at a certain stage in your career, especially when you're emerging. You cannot you don't have anyone to sort of pass some of the work on to. So you have to do but that's a process. That's how everyone has to go through this. I don't think there's a shortcut, but it is about, let's say, you will find people who really want to support your work. If you're really serious about your work, your family will find you, your tribe will find you, and they'll come to you and say, hey, looks like you're struggling with this, can we help you with that? But so the point is, there's all of this logistics and admin and all of those things, but if you focus on your creative energies, on that bit, help will somehow come to you. You've also got to put it out there, saying, put those signals out there. Don't say no to any kind of help that comes your way, especially money.
Of course. I'll keep that in mind, noting it down.
Don't ever say no to money. And sometimes you have to do certain kinds of work that's commercial, and it's like soul stripping, but you do it, although it's within the creative space. So you have to. This is how it is. I mean, whoever said that it was going to be an easy journey as an artist? This is it. This is what we signed up for.
It sounds like an unconventional form of discipline where we usually think of discipline as you're doing the same thing every day, but even though the act of juggling is the discipline that you're sort of cultivating with your
you
practice.
have to be supremely flexible. You have to be flexible. You have to see what you need to do for this moment. And focus on that moment. If at that moment you need to focus on the finance, focus on the finance. You know, so you have to be really flexible, and you have to be like water. You should be able to get into any sort of tumbler that you're put into as an artist. You can't be that egotistical, I'm the artist and I only paint, or I'm the artist, I only show up. And you can't be that person as an artist. At least this is what I believe. This has kind of been my journey.
And do you think you being a multidisciplinary artist has contributed to this fundamental idea of flexibility being the core aspect of your work?
Oh yeah, 100%. That, and also being curious and open to opportunities. If something excites you, always say yes, and then find a way to do it.
Then figure it out later.
But go with that. Oh, okay, that's exciting. Let's just do it. It's never been done before. Shit, how do we do this? You figure that out later. But I always say yes to anything that excites me first.
It's a good principle. I'll keep that in mind. But I would also love to hear from you, because I would love to know the way that, because I'm somebody who also I work in the literary arts, so that is also quite you're alone, but you also need visibility. There's that aspect. And it kind of, again, as she was detailing, it's really hard to strike that balance of sustaining that creative spark while also engaging in this outreach and creating this public understanding and knowledge of your work. So how do you navigate that?
I don't do it well at all. I think I'm terrible at it. I just concentrate on my work, and I'm not very good at multitasking. So when I'm concentrating on my work, there are periods when I'm totally in my studio. I kind of avoid calls also, like I'm just working at that time, and then I take off 3-4 days in the middle, and then I try to do the other things. And even social media is very important, and I still haven't managed to deal with that because I never have time for some reason, and I do not have funds to hire someone, and I do not have assistants as well right now. So yeah, as she said, it's a little difficult.
No, but as she also said, it's a rite of passage. So we'll be hearing back from you in a few months or in a few years' time, and you will have gotten past this hiccup as well. Yeah, of course, inshallah. But again, it seems as balance looks different for everyone. There's
Can I just add a point to that?
Yeah,
I think, at least now, I thank my parents for having put me through. I mean, I studied architecture and then I have a business degree. So the thing is, because I've worked in corporate, I somehow have certain kind of skills that aid in my practice as an artist. So I just wanted to put it out there.
No, of course, it's not as completely divorced from each other as we'd like to think.
No,
skills are skills at the end of the day.
Yeah, which is why I think artists should have some kind of a sort of an artist management. There's some kind of sort of business side of arts which should be part of the curriculum. Like every artist should have that in the. That's part of the educational thing, is what I feel.
No, of course, and that's I'll keep that in mind as well. But again, as having community at the heart of your artistic ventures, I'm assuming that means dealing with a lot of people at a given time, a lot of stakeholders that are involved in the mix, a lot of emotions involved in the mix as well, because everybody's contributing. There's no one sort of hegemon on top imposing what it is. So in that case, where you have to simultaneously manage people and their emotions and their expectations, but also keep your own ideas and your own originality come in mind. So how do you juggle both of that? How do you keep that play in that space, even when there is a lot of people in the mix?
Well, I guess the important thing is to think of first is who do you perform this? Who do you dedicate this project to? It's not about you as an artist. It's more of the community you serve, the people you serve, the people who would like you to consume your art. Does this speak to them? Does this provide them something, a certain realization after they've seen your performance? Is your objective has it been reached because of allowing people to contribute their insights and not just yours? So I guess that's important to know who you do your work for. It's as an artist, I think it's not always as for me as a theater maker. Our work is not just because of me or because of my colleague, but it's because of the people. We want these shows or performances to be seen at, and I think that's important. That a work as like a theater performance, it is being consumed by the audience, but at the end of the day, it will be theirs, not mine anymore. So that's how I would like to think of it. When we do this, this is dedicated to the people who are watching.
Oh, so you send it out into the world.
Yeah, I think that's how it should be. Because if it can be personal to you, but the personal part is more of I'm doing this because
of what motivates you, what animates you as a person.
Yes.
And you bring me to a very important question of audience then, which I haven't touched upon as of yet. So I want to know, how has your relationship with the idea of your audience, or has your intended audience itself evolved with due time, especially in the visual arts? I would be very curious to know.
Yeah, the audience keeps evolving because wherever you're showing your work, you have a different kind of audience, as I mentioned before. And the audience sometimes participates in the work itself. So when you have multiple views from people, you get a different kind of insight upon your own work. Sometimes it's like you're explaining your work to people, then they are speaking back to you about the same work, but in a different angle. So it's like a give and take relationship. You kind of learn along the way, and you're kind of also putting your ideas across to the world by creating awareness through my work, which I've tried to do. So it's a
Is
give
there a
and take, I
standout
mean.
moment for you in an audience interaction that
What?
stays? Is there a standout moment for you in an audience interaction that stands out in your experience?
I think the last was Abu Dhabi art, and a very monumental, very big sculpture, which was placed in the middle of the room. So I mean, there were a lot of people who kind of appreciated the work, and they also told me like this looks like a massive faucet. It wasn't. Somebody said it's like a space machine. So a different thing. It was actually a gigantic coral, but people thought about it in different ways. So
Which
that was
again
very interesting.
goes back into your artistic
the
process.
entire conversation that you have with people is very, very interesting.
Of course, and just the aspect of being out of the community contributes so much to
Yeah.
your own art in ways that you hadn't seen it before.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. And especially in multidisciplinary spaces and navigating that, has your idea of audience changed based on discipline to discipline? Shereen? Yes.
See, the thing is, because my training started in Indian classical dance. In the Indian classical training, we're always thinking about audience. Audience is part of the work, There's this idea of, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this word called rasa. Yeah? Rasa. So rasa is this experience of the audience. So whatever we create, whatever we perform, the ultimate purpose of that is to generate this rasa in the audience. So as someone trained in the Indian tradition, we're constantly thinking about the audience. That's part of the work. Having said that, I've also done work where we didn't think about the audience at all. It was self-serving. Done some experimental theater work. We were really interested in pushing the audience into places of discomfort. So for example, we had this mirror and they had to watch the entire performance looking at the mirror and seeing themselves. So basically I've done that kind of work too, and I've done this kind of work too. They're very different.
Of course.
So when you think about the audience, when you start the work, when you do the work, what goes out there is a different experience.
Of course.
Of course, I mean, as artists, we do all kinds of work, and I think the majority of my work, I always think about who am I making this for? What am I doing this for? Of course, there's my own artistic expression, but I'm also thinking, for me, art is a way to connect with somebody else. So I'm constantly thinking about how I'm reaching out and bridging this distance between me and the other person. So for me, art is a way to blend, sort of dissipate the sense of otherness. So for me, the audience or the person who's looking at it or watching it is very much part of my work.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I understand that there's a...
Irrespective of what I do, whether
Of
it's
course.
storytelling or theater or any of those things.
No, of course, and I'm realizing that, of course, as operating in this space and operating in this time and day, that the social media really helps you boost your visibility, engage with your audiences in very different manners. But has it also pushed you to think about your art in terms of because I do not want to use this word. I know artists, especially me, also really dislike this word.
Influencer?
I'm not using that word. No, I'm not that. I'm not going there.
Influencer.
No, I'm not going there. I'm saying there is this idea of when you post something online that it becomes content and not art. So I would love your opinion about that, and also, but at the same time, trying to mobilize social media to create awareness for what you consider art. I would love to start with you.
Oh my God, I'm really bad at social media. The thing is, I look at, and this is the worst way to look at social media, okay? My Instagram is literally a mini version of my website. It's really, I have this event, I mean, come if you want. We'd love to see you there. Or I finished a project and it's out there. I do not use social media effectively. I'm like the wrong person to answer this question.
No, but you can of course share your opinion on it, because at the same time it is something that does come outside the space of social media, because because it has become such a collaborative platform where everyone and anyone, it democratizes access to art, it democratizes access to these forms that might not be accessible to you otherwise, but at the same time it risks standardizing them, it risks making them and reducing them into trends. And as somebody who's interested in breaking barriers, as is evident from you being a multidisciplinary artist, I'm curious to know how you think about that divide.
See, the thing is, social media I've seen it work to expand your audience, okay? So, like if you promote a particular event and you're reaching kind of a bunch of people that you've never, you didn't imagine would come up. So I've had people turn up to shows, coming to watch something, or some of them are first-time theatre goers, or first-time storytelling watchers, and they come in purely because of social media. So if social media is able to expand your audience and get people interested in this work, I think it's very useful.
Of course.
I don't use it effectively. I should. I mean, technically, everyone should have a social media manager at some point, because that is a full-time job, and it's a strategic job. If you have a social media account, you have to commit to a certain kind of frequency. You need to put this. If you can use it strategically as a tool, it absolutely works for you. You can work through social media. I've had people contact me via DM and saying, would you like to do this? I've got work via social media.
Okay.
So if you can use it effectively as an artist, there's your selling tool. I mean, you speak directly to the end person.
Yeah.
But I don't do it effectively.
No, this is more so about, I wanted to know your mental approach to it.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I want to make a point about
please.
social media. See, for me, I don't use it very effectively, but it's still there. They know that I'm there, and I have a few things, like important projects. But when I had my first solo show in Cultural Foundation, then a lot of people came for the exhibition, and there were a lot of people sharing the work. So since I was totally unknown at that time, I had just come into Abu Dhabi, and no one knew me as an artist. So it was really effective for people to get to know my work, even though it's not the perfect presentation of the work. Like the works are very large, and in such a small photograph, you cannot really see the details, but still, the name kind of...
It becomes an invitation to come see the real thing.
Yeah, their friends started coming. So there were a lot of people coming to see the show through social media. I didn't initiate it, but I mean, there were others who were, actively doing that for me. So I was really grateful, and
No, of course.
I mean, I could have done a lot more with social media. Maybe I'll do it a little later. But I think it's a great tool if you use it properly.
If you mobilize it properly.
I think it's now the latest version of a business card.
Yeah.
Well, for me, personally as an artist, as a theater maker, I don't utilize my personal social media to promote our work. I mean, to promote me as an artist, but I use it randomly. I'm a fan of mobile photography, so whatever sparks interest for me, I take it and then I upload it on my Instagram. But in terms of branding for our group, is that I think it's important to utilize social media in terms of how does this new tool creates awareness of the mission and vision of your theater group, for example. For us, it's important because we realize that most of the people, the unreached market for the community, for the Filipino community here, are the second generation. So they are the ones who utilize this. The parents or the adults who are now here, who came here and now settled as a migrant, They don't have much time really on what you call this, scrolling their Instagram because they are busy working. When they go home, they sleep. So it's their children or it's their kids who are in high school and college who are really utilizing it more or promoting it more. So I realized that it's important to if you are to get a person handling your Instagram, I would like to just get someone who is younger.
Yeah.
They have
Apparently, the algorithms and your work.
Of course, it puts it
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
yeah, they
No,
have
those
they
things-
have lots of
Yeah.
ideas on how.
Yeah, we
I
don't.
didn't thought about that. Okay, do it. Because right now we have 2 volunteers for because we have a project. If I may promote it now, Meta Diaries.
Plug it in. Plug
Yeah.
It in.
We've tried to call out volunteers, and one of the call outs not just for the actors or the production team, but more on the back door of promoting the whole collective.
Yeah.
So we have now one who takes videos and one who creates websites, and we combine them. Now they're handling the Instagram.
Oh, wow.
So these are young people. They grew up here, and they know the market.
Of
They
course.
but they don't have an idea of the Filipino community.
Ah.
That's the thing. So we're hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. So we're orienting it that the migrant community is like this, and your generation, you know the current market, the trends and all. So do your thing and let's combine both.
Of course, it's
So it helps a lot.
No, of course. Speaking of call outs and volunteers, I would love to call on our audience to. That was a really good transition, right? I would love to turn to our audience in case you have any questions to ask our lovely artists here.
I'll ask.
Of course.
Congratulations on the journeys. It's not easy stepping out of your comfort zone. As you said, you've studied to work in a corporate environment, but now you're pursuing your artistic self. And so it takes a real brave and courageous human being to step out of comfort zone and follow a straight path in life and diversify themselves. So congratulations to all of you for doing that. And hopefully we'll all inspire you to get there. But while I'm listening to you, and you've done such an amazing job asking questions, one thing that does come to my mind is, and this is just from my own personal self, and is the word sacrifice. Because when we, our young selves, as we transition into our adult selves, we have to conform to certain standards economically and financially. So we tend to sacrifice a lot of ourselves. Maybe for me, I loved writing as a child. Unfortunately, I didn't become a writer. I had to think of myself in the future and to sustain myself financially. So I went into a career as a teacher. And I still want to be a writer. But I'm always conflicted with how do I sacrifice this permanent position that I have, the security in my life, to aspire to the person that I know I'm meant to be. Because as you say, it does take its toll on you financially. There's that fear factor, so that now I can wake up in the morning and I can trade time for money, because time is more precious, but then money is just as important. So how do I wake up every morning and do something that I'm truly passionate about, but at the same time I'm concerned where the next paycheck is going to come. So what sort of sacrifices do you think you as artists have to make on a daily basis, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well?
What's your name?
Shahida.
Shahida. Shahida, you want to be a writer?
Well, I am.
You're a writer.
I am.
You would like to do that full time. So the thing is, I personally think that it boils down to time management, really, because you can be a writer. You can write. I mean, you're a teacher now, but it's really about finding that so-called protected time in your day to write. And you don't have to sacrifice your career as a teacher to do that, especially because you're a writer. So you will start out like that, and you have to sustain that practice of writing every day. That's why it's called practice, because you're doing this every single day. It's a riyaz, it's a sadhana, you're writing it. Your writing is your practice, just as I have a practice. So if you practice every day, you become what you practice. But you have to commit to practicing that every day. It might just be an hour. So you start at an hour, and then you give it an hour every day, and then suddenly you have a body of work. You publish it. People are interested. So then that hour becomes 2 hours. And then you'll come to a point, there'll be a tipping point when you can make that choice. That, oh, okay, maybe I can be a half-time writer. Then you can be a full-time writer. So that's how it is. It's not one big sacrifice that you have to make one day. You wake up in the morning, I sacrifice my career as a teacher and I'm going to... That doesn't work like that. You transition. It's a slow process, but your commitment to your practice has to be there. That's what I think.
If I may just add, I was all smiles while you were giving your question because I was reminded of the fear. If I may share, this is a very personal thing. And it only happened recently. While we were doing this current project that we're doing now, I had a lot of realization in terms of if I wanted to do this, continuing doing theater here in the UAE, I have to be able to have more time and focus on the artwork and art making. But it's not possible because I'm working. And my stay here is based on a certain document that if I don't allow myself to be employed, I wouldn't have that. And also I would like to put in also to say that what you said is true, that you have to start creating first. And then eventually you will realize that, okay, I think it's time now that I have to focus 100%. Why I'm saying this because last month I resigned.
Well done.
I resigned. You know why? Because Bill. No, because
That is mischievous.
because for this project we're doing now, it won't be possible if we don't create an official group licensed by the government. So we have to find out. Me and my co-founder and our team, we've been trying to figure out how can we do this? How can we start to grow as a group, as a collective, financially and work-wise in terms of creation, if we are limited with moving and because of we cannot get money from fundraising because we don't have license. So recently, just this year, I decided I will resign and we will apply for an events company that can be a licensed institution that can sustain our collective. But who among the group will sacrifice themselves? Who?
I think
You
you've
pick the shot.
answered-
I don't have a choice. I have to because someone has to do it. So,
Yeah.
and also because I feel that that time I don't have that fear anymore. But that fear is very important because you can use that for you to realize eventually, okay, I felt this is part of your process as an artist. I felt this fear, but I should use this fear as a basis of what I should be doing next.
I think you've answered my question because I too have just resigned from my.
Welcome to the club.
Well, to your last 9 weeks of teaching.
Wonderful.
Yes, but it takes a lot of yourself because it's a relationship that's ending and you're transitioning into a new chapter in your life, and so for me it's not really a sacrifice in a sense, but it's just allowing yourself to be free, to finally giving yourself permission to be free. But there's always that fear that, but then there's also that curiosity, what's on the other side?
Yeah.
What's on the other side, and why do I need to conform? I can wear multiple hats, and I don't need to just stay in this place always.
And that's
I'd like to add one thing. Like when you just start off initially, like you've left your job, you've retired, and you've started writing. In the beginning, you need to have a lot of patience because things may not happen for you immediately, but you keep pursuing it, you keep applying maybe for some grants, and keep writing your thing. Try to get publishers to publish your book, things
Yeah.
like that.
And-
but I think it'll take at least like
Yeah, that's
1 or 2 years
Yeah,
to
easy.
just set base.
Yes.
And then the other parts will follow. That will be in like at least 3 to 4 years.
that uncertainty actually will make you more creative in terms of the business side of being an artist, because okay, I resigned, I don't have any more monthly source of income, so what's next? So you will force yourself, okay, as an artist, I have to have this side of my brain, which deals with creating works, and the other side should be dealing with, okay, this is this is my product. How do I sell this? So you have to be able to practice that. If not, you will have a hard time, because that's what I'm doing now. Okay, I don't have monthly income, so what's next? So how else do I get the possibility of earning from this? Because that's a very real thing that you have to face. So me and the rest of the group are coming up with, okay, Jomel, if you have an event idea, throw it in the group, and then let's find volunteers that can help us this, and if start to earn, pay us. There are people who are willing to help me, and you just have to tell them that, okay, I'm in this situation. How can you help me? So I have now a few people who have volunteered in terms of creating an event concept and branding it without expecting any payment. But if it started to grow and start earning, they'll be accepting payment afterwards. So you have to be able to find ways after you decide to do this 100%.
Yeah.
I think you can do that as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask another question? Sorry. So, a lot of people will say, I'm waking up, I go to work for the paycheck. They go to work to earn money. Obviously, it's not the case for you. So where does the motivation come from? Because you're not just doing it for the money. So where does that motivation stem from? What keeps you going? Even when there's no financial opportunities lined up, what keeps you motivated besides the audience and doing it for them?
That's heavy.
I think, can I answer this? So basically, I think that, as you develop your name, the money will come. Initially, you need to fund yourself for a little while, but as your work grows, as your name grows, and people are more aware of your work, and they know that you're critically up to a certain level, then automatically more money comes. It's not like in the beginning you'll have all the money to start off with, but slowly you will have. You need to critically work and develop every day on your work.
Shai, the money can't be your motivator.
Yeah.
Of course.
Not just as an artist, as anyone. You can't wake up thinking that I'm going to do this for money. Because that's like,
not
you'll
the
hate
case.
it. You'll hate every single day of your life. You live like that. So whatever it is that you're doing, whether it is an art practice or anything else in your life, that has to excite you. Whatever it is that you're doing that day has to excite you. I don't know, you might just be gardening, a retired person to be gardening. What is the motivation of that person? Just that life and creating something, connecting with someone. So that has to be a motivator. And the work, as she said, will speak for itself. The money is a consequence of the work you do. If your work is good, it'll have its audience, it'll have its supporters, money will come. You're a Hindi speaker?
No.
You're not a Hindi speaker.
No, I'm from South Africa.
Oh, you're from South Africa?
Yeah.
Okay. No, because I wanted to say, there is a saying in Hindi, we say, Dar ke aage jeet hai. It means victory comes if you can overcome your fear. You have to overcome your fear first. It's not about being fearless, it's about being courageous. fear will always be there. But to have that courage, but if you can pass that, then there is success. Whatever that is, it may not be monetary. Eventually, the monetary will happen. When monetary can't be your driver, is personally what I feel.
Also, I think one of the things that helped me is knowing that I have a group, I have a community that can be there for me. If I may promote again, I'm an advertising graduate, that's why. New program. New program by NYUAD helped me a lot to be, courageous in terms of really going out there. I realized that you may be an artist, but you cannot be alone. You have to be able to reach out. You have to have the courage to talk to people and be interested to them and what can they offer you as well. It's not really about being selfish. What can you do for me? But knowing what's out there for you and knowing who can be there for you as well, and creating a community, like go attend events like this, meet more people who think same as you, or doesn't think same as you, but you can realize something because of how they think or how they work. I think that also helps. Just create your people.
Totally.
There are also writers' residencies you can apply for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now there's a lot of what's a group.
Yeah.
There's a lot of right now. I just got recently. I became a member of a writing artists for UAE. I'll share it with you.
Yeah. The thing is, you're a skilled person. You will find commercial work as a writer. So, you've got to balance the two. If you have skills, you will never go hungry. Trust me. You just have to know how to monetize it.
Thank you for answering the questions you have done. Such an insightful, insightful feedback, and I really appreciate it.
Of course, and what a pleasure to listen to all of you. Are there any more questions? Or
Thank you. So, as an artist, in which level you feel that's my style? Does it come with different experimenting with mediums after years of experience, or another question: as an artist, really should have a style?
I feel that
That's
style
always
comes with
confusing
time,
me.
with practice. You develop. You don't. When you initially start, you try many different things. Like even if you're sketching, suppose you're sketching every day, your style will come. It will be your personal style, but it doesn't come in the beginning because you're just experimenting with different things and you want to develop your work. So you have to also look at other artworks. You have to be aware of what is going on, but it will still be your work when you're working every day as a practice. So that takes time.
Okay.
And also, I think it's important to be able to realize that you can always collaborate. You'll learn from the person you're collaborating with. Because right now, we're collaborating with non-Filipino artists doing video projection, video artwork for us for this upcoming project. And I realized that it's so nice to work with people who are a different nationality. It gives a different perspective to it. And one of the contributors for the text that we're using is actually an Indian girl, an Indian young lady. And but we realized our narratives also the same as what she experienced in a different lens, but still the same. So as an artist, I think it's important that you know who you can collaborate with and learn from them. And eventually, your future works will also speak about your experience and how you can create more different kinds of art forms.
Yeah.
You also need to
Exactly.
read a lot. Yeah, you need to read a lot. Visit exhibitions, go to the museums, also walk.
Networking, does it count also?
What?
Networking also counts,
Definitely.
right?
Yeah, somewhat.
The
I
wo-
find it a bit
yeah, no, the thing is,
business side of art, which is a bit
I mean,
hard.
networking, think about it, don't call it networking. It just sounds
But
sometimes quite ugly. But no, it's about you're connecting
It's
with
a
other
scam.
people. I think I completely agree with her in the sense that your voice is built over time as an artist. Initially when you're starting off, you might copy the style of someone you really admire. But that's where everyone starts, right? And it's over time that you understand that you develop a certain kind of voice that is yours. I mean, artists spend their entire life sometimes finding their voice. And sometimes when you see an artist and you can see their signature on it, you know that there's a whole journey that's gone behind it. And it's not something that happens overnight. But don't worry so much about those things. Really don't worry about it.
Just enjoy.
Just do what you're compelled to do,
experience.
and it'll happen. So don't think about those kind of things. Just focus on the work.
I feel you need to show your work to people as well. If you get a mentor, suppose you like somebody's work, you can start showing them your images and what work you do, and even like a small little tip about your work, how you can develop. That also helps a lot in the beginning. So,
And even up until now, even we've done a lot of performances and projects, I still feel what you call this. I still feel the need for pleasing people. I kind of feel that I forgot the word, but I feel that I have to get the attention of someone, which blocks the creativity somehow when you start creating. So better think not of those things and just create. If they say that your work is bad, then it's bad.
But there's always someone who'll find it good.
Yeah, of course. But if you think that you are saying something about it with your work, then that's fine.
Yes.
And eventually, you'll grow into it and you'll create a bigger project and more, and people would love it. So.
Okay, thank you.
the more you practice, the more satisfied you'll be with your work. In the
And more
beginning, you won't
confident
like
you
your
will
work,
be.
But then you start liking it a bit. Then you'll feel that the pieces are more successful as you move on.
And you'll be able to take criticism as well. In
And
the
you
sense,
should.
yeah, and there will be people who like it, and there will be people who don't like it. That's okay. You'll come to a stage where you are completely convinced about what you've made, and you've made it with 100% integrity and focus and all of that. And for you, only that will matter. Criticism will come, and there will be both. There'll be praise and criticism, and you will come to a point of confidence when none of that will shake you. Not the good, not the bad, not the anything. Nothing will matter at that point.
I'm smiling because my 5-year-old likes to criticize. The 9-year-old is a bit encouraging. That also counts. Maybe a starting point.
Yeah, they're your first audience members. And they'll see your growth, and I'll tell you, 10 years later, they'll say,
Hopefully.
these are your children or your nephews,
Ma.
nieces? Your children.
My girls, yeah.
Yeah, so they'll say, Ma, you've come a long way.
But kids are too smart. Sometimes the advice is amazing.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
No, thank you.
But it's
for
also very important to know who you're taking your advice from. You have to take someone who's in the field, not somebody who's like.
5 years.
Kids are the best.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
saying. After that.
No filter whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think we can take one more question. There was somebody in the corner.
I'll try to make it
Carlos, how's it?
I'm surprised he hasn't asked any question yet.
I'll try to make it sound conclusive.
Thank you.
Right now, I feel like the art scene that I'm surrounded by and that I'm trying to push, which if I had to define, is people making work here that's accessible to not only Arabic speakers, that is original, and that's talking about stories of being here. Kind of like what 63 Collective is doing, and kind of like what some of us are doing also at 41 right now, and other places. And it feels like it's a little sapling tree that's just poked its head out of the floor, and it's like, oh my God, I'm here. Wow, look at this world. And every time I tell that to people, I keep saying 5 years. 5 years, give us 5 years. And there'll probably be something that we can point at and be like, yes, this is the scene tree that has been growing. How does that image land on you? Does it resonate? Do you feel like, no, actually the tree's already a lot older? Do you feel like 5 years is too long, too short? I just want to know.
Okay, I want to understand. 5 years for what? Exactly.
5 years
For
for
the tree to
the
grow
seed to
into a
grow
thing.
to a point
It's a
where
sapling now.
yeah, to a point where you can really go there. And when you think of a tree,
Yeah.
trees bear fruit.
Yeah.
Trees provide shade. You can go to a tree and lean onto it. You can go
It
to a
depends
tree
from
and
tree to
sit
tree.
around it. It's community, but it's also, I think, an artistic ecology.
Mm.
I think it's a sort of presence as well. Of a tree is also a landmark.
Yeah. I think it depends, you know. I mean, I think if this tree was in the visual arts scene, it would be more. It's, let's say we have a far more mature visual arts scene in the UAE than we have for performing arts. So for performing arts, I would give it a good 5 years, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing something really radical, experimental, it takes a while. So yeah, but visual arts is a little bit more, let's say, people understand it a little more, and they, you know, they're familiar with commercial art fairs, and there's far more exposure. Things like dance, theater is happening. Institutions like NYUAD have done they've played a great role in developing this ecosystem. It's happening. So yeah, so the good news is that sapling is going to grow.
Have you heard of this concept called late bloomers?
I wanted to say something.
Just have to be ready though.
Oh my gosh.
Keep walking, keep at it. I mean,
Yeah.
So I do want to, I guess, just like help you be conclusive. And also, I guess, kind of one of the feelings that I'm having here is actually about the 5-year mark. Because we started the NAMU program, which is sort of an undercurrent in this conversation 5 years ago during the pandemic, right? And we started it, right? And we started it very much from this impulse of the performing arts scene is not nearly as advanced as the visual arts scene, and what are the conditions that need to happen in order for it to grow. And I feel like seeing what you do and seeing what you do and seeing what you do, and going to Beit al-Mamzar, 2 weeks ago, and seeing this sort of immersive multi-artist performance that was an underground performance in a way that I haven't seen before, seeing Sophia Blushi on a festivals panel at Culture Summit yesterday. I do feel like if you're looking for sort of landmarks, that it's reaching a different stage of maturity, and the moon means growth, right? That's why we picked that name for that, sapling metaphor. But I do think there is something that's different, that is about the DIY. Like, I was gonna cry when they would, for good for bad, when you said you gave up your job to do this full time. But that's like exactly what we want to see happen, is that moment where people are really kind of committing to agency, right? And to taking responsibility and not waiting for institutional culture only, and finding ways to work within the institutional structures, but also saying, like, we need to make this happen because this needs to happen. And so let's find a way to do it. So I actually like that 5-year mark. I feel like, based on where a lot of this process, I think, happened for us, and and thinking during that moment where Maya and I sort of co-founded this network of people in the arts, when the borders were closed, we're like, what can we do to really invest in the artists who are living and working here to make that happen? So I actually do think it's an interesting moment for that, and we're seeing the impacts, and you don't always see it when you're in it, right? Because you're just too deep in it. Yeah. So I think that actually the stepping back and looking around and seeing all the people that who are doing really interesting things now, I think is a really positive development.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for helping me conclude. No, but seriously, thank you all for your presence here, for your stories, for your vulnerability, and also for all the insights that you've been contributing to tonight. I think we can all agree that after this conversation, and even from our own experiences, that building a life as an artist is this continuous act of becoming. It's shaped by courage, it's shaped by fear, but it's shaped a lot by logistics, is what I'm realizing today. But I hope tonight's conversations and its insights stay with you and linger with you as conversations with yourself and your own artistic practice, or your engagement with the artistic community at large. On that note, the world premiere of Metro Diaries by 60J Collective, founded by Jomel, will be performed on June 21st and June 22nd at our very own Art Center. We hope to see you there in the spirit of community, creativity, and of course, conversation. Have a good night.